and welcome everyone to the Ginette Biro Podcast. I'm Ginette Biro, and thank you all so much for joining me for the podcast today. And today is a review in a sense, and not a review of necessarily topics we've talked about, but like a review of the last month. It's like the March review. And there's a reason for that. We have had so much happening through March, energetically, societally, within each individual self. It has been quite a fiery month, and I finally am kind of understanding why. So, I say that because in one sense I had a feeling I understood, but at the same time I was kind of like, what the heck's going on here, Spirit? And so there's several things that I want to share with you guys today. So there's going to be several points. But the last month has been about these surfacings. Remember we were talking about surfacings that were coming, surfacings of truths, bringing up a lot of stuff so that we can see it, understand it, and then choose what we're going to do about it. So we've been seeing that happening in, media things, but it's also been asking to do kind of like a deeper dig within self as well. And so the reason for this is because it's making more room for this high energy that's coming in, and we've had a ton of energetic stuff happening. There's been lots of things on the Schumann resonance where the energies have had these like pulses of influx of solar energy, which absolutely has an effect on us. If you think about it, the moon, and we all kind of know this, I'm sure most of you listening to this know this, but the moon has a huge effect on us, right? You can start to notice some people being a little more affected when the moon is full, and even for some in new moons. And now think that the moon is a reflection of the sun, so imagine the power of the sun. But that's something that we haven't fully opened our consciousness to, is the power that the sun has to not only bring us heat and warmth and help us grow stuff on earth, but also to bring consciousness. The sun's light has consciousness within it, but it doesn't speak in language, it doesn't speak in any kind of word, but it speaks in energy, in light form. And so with these pulses of energy that have been coming in, we have been receiving these pulses of energy and energy activations in the form of light code. So I think I've talked to you guys a couple times about light code, but just to give you kind of a visualization, picture your DNA. Right? So your DNA has this double helix type spiral. And beside the DNA runs light code. Now, it's not necessarily exactly like this, but to explain it, this makes sense. So light code runs beside your DNA. And as it's being activated, it kind of creates these bonds and connections to your actual physical DNA, so that the two can work in a harmonious unit. But what I'm understanding is that light code actually rotates around your DNA, almost like a propeller rotates around the central, whatever that is. I don't know what the word is, but whatever the propeller rotates around, that thing, that's like your DNA. So as it rotates around, it gives more speed, it gives more capacity. And so these pulses of energy are bringing in higher capacity to our physical bodies to balance out what's happening to our spirit and to our energy bodies. Now, this is a really, really good thing, but it takes a toll in a sense on the physical body, because the physical body has to catch up. So it's almost like when you start a new fitness program, or say you're thrown into boot camp, right? At the beginning of boot camp, you are working so hard. You're taking everything you can to put into making it through the day. Whereas at the end of your boot camp, you're going to be a pretty highly skilled machine, and it's going to be much easier because your body will have gained strength where it needed to refine its system in movement. So that same kind of idea is happening to our physical bodies. As we are increasing with this light code consciousness, we will begin to adapt to it. And in fact, they're saying we are starting to adapt to it, but it does take a toll. And because it comes in pulses, we're noticing there's some days where we're like, yeah, okay, I'm back in the game, I'm good, everything is feeling fine. And then the next day you're just out of nowhere wiped again. And so again, always check for medical things as well, right? But for many of you, there is an energetic pull and an energetic upgrade happening on your physical bodies, which takes time. So that's why I posted the other day, like, it is okay to rest. Remember, allowing yourself to rest allows you that opportunity to nourish your body so that you're not fighting against it and you actually upgrade faster. If you take a rest, you have more space to let the upgrades come in, and then your consciousness will begin to fire faster in terms of insights, understandings, perspectives, like you name it. There's a big basket of abundance that comes with that consciousness. So I say that to encourage you guys to kind of look outside yourselves. That's what Spirit was saying. They were saying, like, look beyond yourself so you don't just take it on as if, I'm tired, therefore I'm weak, and therefore I'm letting myself down. It's like, well, what if actually you're tired because you have been doing so much work, you've been doing such an upgrade, and we're so proud of you that we want you to have a rest. Like, please just rest instead. So 2 totally different perspectives that we can choose to look from, and the choice is yours. So I love that they brought in that understanding, because for many of us, that takes the pressure off. It allows that total acceptance and availability to rest. But at the same time, that also means when you're resting, sometimes some people are finding they're so like, their body is resting, but their mind is firing with ideas and concepts and things. And that's great, because again, remember, as these bonds are happening, where it can let the light code move like a propeller over your DNA, you have the ability now to bring in more consciousness, meaning more ideas, more thoughts. You're reviewing life patterns of yours to see where you want to do something different. This is an absolutely amazing opportunity for change within. And remember, we've always said that to change the world has to start with one person, has to start with you somehow. So allow your mind to run where it needs to go, and even maybe have a notepad by your bed for your different ideas, different thoughts, what you want to do different, what you want to clean up, clear out, communications you want to have. These are all really important parts right now, because there's a big sense of spring cleaning going on in our emotional bodies right now to make room for so much new growth, which is amazing. So that's part 1. The next part is there are many endings and conclusions occurring right now as well. So just as we're digging up stuff and changing perspectives, what that is then allowing is for these endings and, like I said, conclusions, completions. And this is a really powerful thing, but they're showing up in many different ways. And so I say this with a lot of compassion, because for some people, these endings and conclusions are coming as either, say, like an ending of a marriage, the passing of a loved one, leaving toxic situations. And those are hard, but they can be celebrated in new aspects of life. At the same time, there's other people on the other end of the spectrum who are celebrating these amazing endings and completions that have allowed for amazing growth in starting new businesses, starting new relationships, starting a family, having a baby. There's so many things. So again, we're seeing these polarized pieces, and whichever one you're sitting in, and some may have a foot in both, is honor the very human aspect of whichever one you're in, or both. If you're in a time where right now you're experiencing completions and closures that are very heavy, honor them for what they are, because they are there to set you free. If you are celebrating the joys of new beginnings, honor it and don't feel guilty for being there. You've worked to get to that point. Things are happening as they should in your life to give you either the lessons you need or the bounties you've earned. And again, if you have a foot in both, sometimes that's a hard position to be in, because we feel we can't be happy if there is a sad, right? Somebody may have created a brand new business or I know one situation where somebody had a baby and it was beautiful, but they also lost a parent within that same month. And so they have this joy and they have this heartbreak, and they don't know how to feel because we're not used to feeling both, but you can feel both. And so the way to do it is, again, honor the very human aspect of you. If you're sad, honor your sad. Let it out. Express it. If you are happy and joyful, allow yourself to bathe in that. That's nourishment for the soul. And if you bounce back and forth or you want to walk down the middle, that's fine. Just simply honor where you're at. Because that in itself, the honoring of it, means you're not fighting anything. You're not pushing anything away. You're walking in flow with your life and your path. And when that happens, we have the ability to move through things a lot faster than when we're pushing them away. And when we really bring in the goodness, it helps us recognize what goodness is instead of living very neutral or numb. So I encourage you guys to kind of explore where you're at or what's going on in your life and really find the ways in which you can honor the different pockets of things. Because there are very pivotal changes that we're at in this juncture point right now of endings and conclusions and beginnings, all happening kind of within the same range. There's a range of these things happening right now. So honor them. And the other thing too is Spirit wanted me to go this far. So when I was talking about some of the endings and conclusions being death, I want to talk specifically about death. And the reason is if we even look at what we're finding right now or where we are right now, being that it's Easter weekend, if we look back to some religious concepts and the story of Jesus, who I believe was a very real person, as was Buddha, as was Muhammad, as was many of the great teachers in the past, Jesus gave us an understanding of the ability to transcend our idea of death. And I know that as a medium already because I can talk to spirits on the other side. I know that as a human who has had a near-death experience and been on the other side and come back. I know myself and my truth that we transcend the societal idea, or maybe the old societal idea, of death being final, done, over with. Yes, it is final and done for the physical body, but the physical body is but like a jacket that we wear for a time to help us be comfortable in an environment, right? Just as when it's really cold outside, we put on a jacket so that we can sustain being outside. But when we come back inside, if we were to keep the jacket on, it would be a burden, so we take the jacket off. But by taking that jacket off, it doesn't change who we are one bit. We're still entirely the same person, the same being, the same soul. We just don't need that jacket anymore. And that really is how death is. It's a removing of a jacket, so to speak, and I say that in quotations, but it doesn't change who we are. We actually expand into more, but we don't forget 1 ounce of who we are. We actually come even closer to everything we've ever been in this life. And so I want to speak to that because I posted a couple days ago on my Facebook group, the Avalon Spirit Facebook group. I posted, and on Instagram, the idea that if it was your last day on earth, what would you do? And I asked that purposely because of what we were coming into this weekend with Easter. And the idea is like, sometimes we think we would do everything so different. And yes, there's variability. I mean, some people are like, I would spend all my money in my bank account and burn it all. Fair. It's totally fair, right? Others were like, I would just hug my family and make sure they know that I love them. And that's the kind of piece I want to speak to is whether it be hugging your family or, going for a run because you just never thought you could, but you finally do. Or, trying a certain food or a candy because you never did and you never felt like you should, but you decide to. There's different ends of this scale of what is valuable to different people. But the idea is if we live with a little piece of that idea, that thought of making the most of each day, we're going to live with so much more bounty and joy and openness and awe of this human experience. And I say this because I so vividly remember when I was on the other side and they asked me, do you want to come back? I remember my response was like instant in saying, well, yes, of course I do. Absolutely, absolutely, I want to go back. And I wasn't saying that out of fear that they wouldn't let me back. I knew it was absolutely my choice. But the thing was, I was so excited to come back here and be a part of this experience, a part of the polarity on earth, a part of the highs and the lows, the joys and the burdens. Like I had full consciousness of the magnitude that it is to be on earth, but I had it from that perspective. And let me say that this perspective on the other side was absolute peace and harmony. It was harmony like we don't quite understand on this planet. I didn't want for anything, but I didn't feel a lack by not wanting. There's nothing missing. Everything was whole and everything was complete and perfect in harmony. It was divine. But I longed to come back here, and I wanted to come back here into this mix of crazy that is the world right now, because there was so much lesson in it. There was so much bounty. There was purpose. There was my kids and my family. And then there was what I, agreed to do, which was to speak and to share. And so I'm speaking about this particular piece in connection to this whole message today, because with all these energetic upgrades that we have going on right now, and with all these surfacings of truth and the healing of personal wounds, the endings and the beginnings that we're at, the high trajectory of change that we're on and have clicked into, we are in a process of transforming life on this planet. We really are. As human beings ascending in consciousness, we are transforming it. And for many, they think the world has totally gone to shit, pardon my language. But I really believe that it's surfacing up all the stuff we need to see to move it out of the way. That's progress. Otherwise, everything's just been buried for a really long time, either within ourselves individually or as a collective. So at this turning point of spring, at this beautiful Easter weekend, which is deeply symbolic to so many, at this time of endings and beginnings with high energetic pulses of consciousness coming to us from the sun, we have amazing ability to choose the ways in which we wish to progress forward in our lives. Choose the ways in which we react to every situation going on, and choose to hold a higher vibration of consciousness in our minds as we move through these next few years of dramatic change on the planet. And that means making the next right choice every time you have the opportunity. It doesn't matter who you were before. What matters is who you are now and how you make good with that, how you do well with that, what you do for others with that. Are you living from your heart? Are you living in alignment with your best self? When we do these things, we have the power to create so much in our lives, whether it be in what we do professionally, relationships personally. Our health and wellness is so deeply connected to our mind. It's unbelievable. And we are being given access through these light code activations back to those connections, those bridges that make all of those things possible. So the more you start to live in consciousness and awareness of what's going on, the more you can start to make the most of this lifetime you have here on this planet at this absolutely important transitional time for humanity. So I think you guys can feel the passion that I have in my heart for all of this. I really do. And I'm sharing with you, not in the form of lecturing, but in a form of, many of these understandings I've lived through myself. Many of them I am integrating and embracing and activating myself. And so as always, Spirit shares messages with me to share with you guys that I also have to experience. So I share them with a lot of love and compassion, and also a lot of excitement and belief in the good and belief in the joy. And I'm choosing to, not hang on to fear in many different situations because it's not worth it. So I hope that adds some joyful energy and inspiration to you guys this week to start off April with a beautiful bright light of energy and spring. And I mean, just look to Mother Nature for the beauty and the bounty that's coming back right now. So I wish you guys a wonderful week.